Long before she became a legend, Maria was a living woman, known throughout her village for her beauty and charm. Born into a humble family, she grew up in a small riverside village surrounded by lush greenery and the tranquil flow of water. From a young age, Maria had captivated the hearts of many. Her laughter was like music, her smile bright as sunlight glistening on the river. Don Fernando was a man of status and power, with dark, piercing eyes that seemed to promise a life beyond the riverbanks. He was captivated by Maria's beauty and pursued her with gifts and sweet words. Maria, swept up in his charm, fell deeply in love with him. They married quickly, despite the whispers of the villagers who warned her of the nobleman's reputation with women. For a time, their marriage was happy. They had 2 beautiful children, a boy and a girl, who were the light of Maria's life. The family often played by the river, Maria singing lullabies as her children laughed and splashed in the water. She believed she had finally found her happily ever after. But as the years went by, Don Fernando's visits to the village became less frequent. He would leave for long periods, claiming business in the city. He returned with gifts, but his affection for Maria had faded. He grew distant, and the love that once burned brightly between them turned cold. Maria's heart ached with the realization that her husband no longer loved her. One day, as Maria and her children were playing by the river, a lavish carriage arrived at the village. Maria recognized it immediately. It was her husband's. Her heart fluttered with hope, believing he had come to spend time with them. But as she approached the carriage, she saw something that shattered her world. Inside, beside Don Fernando, was a young, elegant woman. The woman was laughing, her hand resting gently on Fernando's arm. He looked at this woman with a tenderness he hadn't shown Maria in years. Maria's chest tightened, her mind raced with disbelief, then anger, and finally, a blinding, consuming sorrow. She confronted her husband, tears streaming down her face, but he looked at her with nothing but pity. Without a word, he turned the carriage around and left with the woman, leaving Maria standing by the river, her children clinging to her skirts. Maria's grief was overwhelming. She felt abandoned, discarded, as if the years she had given to him meant nothing. Her mind clouded with dark thoughts. She could hear the echoes of the villagers' whispers. How foolish she had been to think a man like him would truly love her. The laughter of her children, who were unaware of the pain their mother felt, grated against her ears. Blinded by grief and rage, Maria led her children to the river. The water, once a source of joy, now looked dark and menacing under the gray sky. Her thoughts twisted in her agony. If she had not married, if she had not loved, would she have suffered this much? And what future awaited her children, born into a broken home? In a moment of madness, driven by the unbearable pain of betrayal and loss, Maria did the unthinkable. She grabbed her children by their small hands, dragging them into the river's cold embrace. They screamed and struggled, but Maria's grip was unyielding. The water rose around them, the river pulling them deeper into its dark currents. As the reality of her actions set in, it was already too late. Maria's children had gone limp, their tiny faces pale and lifeless. The horror of what she had done washed over her in a tidal wave of regret and despair. She screamed, the sound tearing through the air, a wail so filled with anguish that it echoed across the riverbanks. She fell to her knees in the shallow water, cradling her children's bodies. "What have I done?" she cried, her voice breaking. "Mis hijos! Mis hijos!" Her wails were heard throughout the village, the sound carrying on the wind like a mournful song. The villagers ran to the river, but when they arrived, all they found was Maria's white dress floating on the surface. In her grief, she had thrown herself into the river, hoping to be washed away with her children, to find solace in the depths where they now lay. The river swallowed her whole, and she was never seen alive again. When Maria's body was pulled from the river days later, her face was frozen in an expression of sorrow and regret. The villagers, who had once envied her beauty and life, now pitied her. They buried her beside her children at the edge of the river, whispering prayers for her tormented soul. But Maria did not rest in peace. On the night of her burial, the villagers heard the unmistakable sound of a woman crying by the river. The wailing voice called out into the night, "Ay, mis hijos!" The cries were so full of pain that it made the listener's heart ache. Those who dared to approach the river saw a ghostly figure in a white dress, wandering along the banks with her head lowered, her long black hair covering her face. It was Maria, now known as La Llorona, the weeping woman. Her soul, burdened by the guilt of her actions, was cursed to roam the earth for eternity. She searched for her lost children, weeping endlessly for them, her cries a haunting reminder of her tragic mistake. In her sorrow, she would sometimes mistake living children for her own, luring them to the river in hopes of finding peace. But each time she would realize they were not hers, and her grief would deepen. Her spirit became a warning to others, a dark tale told to children who played by the riverbanks. As the years passed, La Llorona became more than a ghost story. She became a symbol of grief and loss, of the unending pain of a mother who had lost everything. Her wails still echo in the night, a mournful cry that chills the hearts of those who hear it. For La Llorona is forever searching, forever crying out for the children she herself sent into the cold embrace of the river.